Okay, so next stage is the interview stage. And like with the entrance exams, only Oxbridge and Imperial do interviews. Of course, medicine do interviews for all the subjects, but for engineering, it's just Oxbridge and Imperial, as far as I know. So the purpose of the interview is to see if you're a good fit for the university and the course. That that if you bear that in mind, it's really important because some people can tend to go into an interview and try and act like someone they're not. And it's very hard to do that when you're under so much pressure. Someone's in front of you, like assessing you. You're just not going to be able to pull it off. But then even if you manage to pull it off, you eventually get to the degree and you'll see that like you do need to just be yourself. If you try and act much more smarter than what you're capable of, you won't survive. It's just the intensity of it will just take its toll. So they're gonna judge you for who you are. Um, and think about it, if you do get rejected, it might be a good thing because then they'll recognize that they wouldn't have survived in the course. So there's no point going through the stage, getting to it, going through the struggle of not meeting deadlines, struggling with so much work, and then for you to drop out. It saves you all of that trouble. That kind of makes sense. So and that's what essentially is the purpose of the interview, is to be really thorough in choosing who is fit for the course.
Yeah, so to piggyback on that, yeah, exactly. So the reason for all of this is to just see if you can survive the university course, because university is definitely really, really hard. Like, so if you do get rejected, definitely don't be downhearted, because it just means that you're probably getting saved a lot of stress in the future. And plus, universities, they do all of this to see if you're a good fit. So yeah.
Okay, so the next part is what to expect in an interview, right? And people can think that I need to memorize tons and tons of information, and then I'm going to be asked to sing that in front of them. But that's really not the case. What they're testing is how you can take that knowledge and apply it to situations. And that's essentially what you would do as an engineer or a physicist. Because no one's going to ask you to read off data, read off constants, read off numbers. Because you can just get a book and write that in and carry that with you, go to that whenever you need to. It's the applications that is the actual skill behind engineering or physics. So in terms of in the interview, they're going to see what you're capable of. So if you think, oh, I've memorized nothing in terms of data or constants come to mind, please do not worry about that. It's literally more to do with how you apply what you know. So what we wanted to do next was give you a typical interview question. So this is something that you can expect in an Oxford interview or an Imperial interview. So I just want to give you guys a couple of minutes to read it, process it, and then I want to get your thoughts on what you think. So if you feel free to unmute yourself and give us your ideas as to how you'd approach this question. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to read it and then see what you guys come up with.
Or if you want, you can like use a chat as well.
Yeah, you can do the chat if you want as well. And also, of course, we'll give what we think, how we'd approach it, and what would be going through our minds if we were told this question. Okay. Yeah, like I said, feel free to unmute yourself if you have any thoughts. Is anyone brave enough to unmute themselves and say anything? Or feel free to use the chat.
If not, we can pick as well.
No, we're not gonna pick. We're just joking.
It's okay if you don't. We can give you what we'd go through. Okay. And that's okay. Like it's probably a daunting thing to speak in front of a lot of people. So from my initial thoughts of this question, so reading it, a rocket of initial mass m0 including shell and fuse, fired vertically at time t equals 0. So what I do is I think about the kind of which aspect of physics are they wanting me to go down, and what aspect of physics in terms of the equations do they want me to recall. 'Cause if you can recognize that, then you can discount any like formulae that you wouldn't need. And we can be like, I think sometimes with physics you think, oh, there's so many formulas, how do I know which one to use? Well, if you can recognize um which discipline they're going down, then that really narrows down what you need to do. And there's only so many equations in a certain field of physics, right? So that really helps you to kind of get a grip on the question. Okay. So the next thing that I do is try and imagine what is actually happening in this situation. So they've told us that a rocket has been fired at, at vertically at t equals 0, and then the fuel is consumed at a constant rate of q equals dm by dt. So the rocket's being fired, and then if you imagine, I'm sure people have seen rocket launches where at the bottom there's fumes being exhausted out. That like is literal mass of the rocket being lost, and so that affects a lot of things. So if you can recognize that the mass of the rocket is changing, and that's going to affect how it accelerates and stuff. And bearing in mind, this is also an interview, right? So all of this stuff that I've said is something that you should be saying to the interviewer as well, because then they'll recognize how you're thinking, and see that, oh, okay, so this person does actually know what he's on about. He does know his concept. He does know his basic fundamental physics. Okay. Rahima, do you have anything to add on this interview question?
And yeah, so basically, yeah, what Farabi said. So when you get these questions, the key thing to do is go through your thinking out loud. And if you do have, like, say, an unfamiliar part of the question, you need to do this question. But in an interview, that's kind of the thought process you want to go through. You want to take something and see how that links to everything else, or work through the problem. If you have something you've never seen before, don't be thrown off. Just go through what that unfamiliar thing links to the familiar concepts that you know of. And even if you don't get it right, that's not what the interviewers want. They just want to see your thinking and logical thought processing. So don't stress about, I need to get everything right. It's more about how you logically think through the problem.
Just one more thing on the tips. One really simple thing that people, I think, fail to sometimes. Raj, if you go back to the other slide.
Yeah.
One of the things that people kind of fail to sometimes do is literally write down what's been given to you and what's required. So if you look at part A, it says they want you to find the velocity of the rocket at time t. So literally write v at time t and a question mark, because then that's information that you don't know. Whereas information that you do know is m naught at t equals 0, fuel consumed at that rate, and then that just helps you to put everything on paper, and like everything's structured. Nothing's flowing around in your mind in a really confused way. And even in my lectures, when the lecturers are going through their questions on their slides, these are people that have done this for uh, years, decades, right? And they still do this method. It's a really powerful but really simple way to think. And they'll give you paper in the interview, so make sure to utilize it and like write it down, and you'll show to the interviewer, okay, so this person likes to work in a structured way, and that's always a really good thing to have. So you want to move on to the next slide, Roger? Cool. Okay, so this is more leading up to the interview and like interview etiquette, these kind of tips. So when it comes to engineering and physics, the bulk of it is going to be the maths that you know. So I would recommend brushing up on especially calculus and vectors, but more so calculus. Like in any interview that, and I had interviews at Imperial and Oxford, both of them, I was asked calculus questions. So I'd recommend definitely that you can integrate very quickly, differentiate very quickly. The different techniques that you learn in school, they're like they're like the back of your hand. That's the kind of things that they won't even ask you to do. You need to recognize you need to do them, and then do them yourself. There's no marks for, how you might have an exam, or integrate this. Like they'll literally tell you, as you got to work out, you need to integrate this and then do it. That's the kind of thinking that they expect from you. And I think yeah, Shanzida for chemical engineering, or Khadija for chemical engineering.
One other thing I'd like to add on is you don't sometimes, like, interviews questions can throw you off, but it's okay to ask the person that's interviewing you for help, because you're not only showing them that, like, you're the ideal candidate, but sometimes these guys can be your tutors for the next 4 years or 3 years. So you kind of want to show them that you're easy to work with. And another thing is, for chem specifically, you really do need to brush up on your chemistry for interviews, because you can get asked chemistry and maths questions. So yeah.
Okay, I think with this one, Shanzida was asked this in her interview, so I'm going to let her speak about this specific bullet point.
Yeah, so I got an interview for Oxford, and it was they basically started off with a question. It was really, like, they started off with why do you want to study civil engineering, and then what kind of projects so I answered that, and then they were like, what kind of projects would you like to get involved in once you are a civil engineer? And because they started off with that, it kind of threw me off, and it made me more nervous. But, like, I didn't expect those questions to be asked to me, so I wasn't really prepared. But in general, you should be, because you applied for that subject and you did all this research and you wrote a whole person statement about that subject. They expect you kind of to know a lot of contemporary news about your degree. But I also think that because in my personal statement I mentioned a lot of projects, they read that and they obviously thought I would know. But I was really nervous in an interview, and I don't know, maybe that I couldn't answer it properly. So I would recommend just, like, knowing your personal statement inside out, and then like research, like knowing contemporary news about the degree that you applied to.
Cool. Okay, so with this one, bear in mind that interviews tend to happen in December. So you're only halfway through year 13. So they know that you haven't been taught everything. So if there's something that they ask you to do and you just literally have not been taught it, that's perfect fine to them. You can say to them, sorry, I haven't been taught this. And they'll understand. Like, they're not gonna, it's not a interview to see how well you can pick up new stuff. It's how well you can apply what you already know to unfamiliar situations. And that's literally the essence of engineering, right? You take what you know and you apply it to, you try and solve problems that arise in whatever field you're in. So this is something people, I think, don't even know. Like, you can say you don't know this topic or what they're asking, or even clarify what's been asked. Because bear in mind, it's the interview, right? It's not on paper. They're saying stuff to you. Just ask for clarification as to what's been said. Yeah. Do you want to move on to the next slide, Roger? So this with the going back to the earlier slide, Roger, with the staying calm, this might sound obvious, but just think about any situation you're in, right? An interview is going to be, like, of course, it's going to be really, really tense, really nervous. But with nerves, it means that you're more prone to make mistakes. Whereas if you can think to yourself, all right, if I stay calm and literally process everything slowly, then, like, it might look unfamiliar and difficult to start with, but it will literally just become like a set of instructions for you to follow. It can literally become that simple. And if you look at any kind of activity that you do, when you're so flustered and so uncomposed, literal simple things like following a set of instructions become so difficult. So try and stay calm with what you're doing, with the questions that you ask, because it'll also mean that you can cope under pressure, which is something that you'll also find yourself in your degree. Yeah. Okay. So thinking out loud is one thing that's always recommended for an interview, because it's similar to showing you're working out. If you're doing a written exam, they can see your thought processes. So anything that you get wrong along the way to your answer, they can correct. And getting something wrong is actually a good thing if they give you a clue and you can use that clue to get to the right way, because it shows that you're able to learn off them. You're not narrow-minded. You can think about different approaches, and that's something that people tend to think, oh, I'm never going to make a mistake. Oh, if I make a mistake, then that's an immediate, it's like a driving test, it's an immediate fail. And that's not how it works. They want you to make a mistake and learn from what you made the mistake in.
Also, can I just say something? So if in the interview you have to like do some working out, if you're like thinking aloud constantly, when you're doing working out, it can help give you more thinking time, because under the pressure, like you might like forget how to do like simple algebraic manipulations, because it happened to me. So if you're thinking out, it kind of gives you more time to like make sure your maths is right and everything's right. Whereas if you're just silent and you're going through the maths, you might get something wrong and give the wrong answer. So thinking out just makes everything like more structured and thought through.
Roger, so the last slide is this is more of an etiquette thing. So especially with Oxbridge interviews, what's going to happen is the people that interview you are going to be the ones that, if you go on to study at Oxford or Cambridge, they're going to be the ones that are your tutors. So they'll be, at least for the first 2 years, they'll be the ones who take you through the tutorial sheets, help you out when whatever misunderstandings that you have. So now it's really important to demonstrate also to them that you get along with them. So stuff like smiling, breaking the ice, they can be really influential that people don't realize. Because if you don't get along, if they don't get along with you, then it's very likely that they will not want to like teach you and tutor you in the actual course. Because why would you want to spend time with someone that you don't really get along with, if that kind of makes sense? So do try and also focus on interview etiquette, because it's probably a big unnoticed thing. So that was like the end of our advice. I hope it was beneficial. We wanted to kind of cover all aspects of it, of the application. So personal statement is going to be the thing that applies to most courses. Interview and entrance exams are more for some unis. So hopefully that was beneficial to you guys.